You're welcome, and I'm going to take you through the details. Like I said, I'm ready for the big launch. Are you? We'll be talking about defending media freedom. Well, information is power. Indeed, an informed society is an empowered society. Without a vibrant and of course responsible media which holds those in public office accountable to the people, your rights will probably be violated over and over again, and you can't say nothing. Well, the media gives voice to the otherwise voiceless, but at what cost? Journalists have been killed, others have been maimed. Some radio and TV stations have been shut down. Today, we're standing up for media freedom, which is a matter of concern to many across the world. We're live on Joy 99.7 FM as well, and here on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. You can join in the conversation on our social media platforms. The hashtag is Defend Media Freedom. Hashtag Defend Media Freedom.
My name is Daniel Daze.
Bernard Avle.
Kwame Sefaka.
Right, Nana Amfo.
David Ando.
Virginia Tenkran.
Edward Kwabi.
Joseph Akable.
Kojo Akoto-Boateng.
Umaru Sandaman.
Alfred Okanse.
Captain Smart.
Nana Majimana Sante.
Samson Ladi Anyenini.
Press freedom means
protection to journalists
to go about their work
Without any form of inhibitions,
undue influence,
hindrance or intimidation or fear.
free from harassment.
like a banker would go to their bank and work in the morning, like a teacher would go to the classroom in the morning and teach. And
the opportunity and the space to operate and keep the powers that be in check, and also to drive growth. So press freedom
Is that which enables me to tell the stories that matter the most to the audience.
And then to be able to hold powerful people accountable.
Press freedom to me means that I have
legal backing, support of the state, support of the security agencies to be able to
be fair, to be probing, and to be development oriented.
Press freedom is absolute freedom, but freedom with some responsibility. It's very vital for the survival of any democracy. In fact, I feel it is part of the birthright of every citizen.
so yeah, without press freedom, there can be no press.
You're welcome back. And of course, today we begin a campaign to demand a freer media space, a society in which journalists, media organizations and other players are able to practice without fear. It comes at the back of a drop in Ghana's global ranking on press freedom from first in Africa to fourth, and concerns by media practitioners about threats on the industry and those who work within that industry. Well, while Ghana is losing ground, attacks and threats on journalism remain a major concern to the international community as well. We'll be talking to you about the global picture, and then we'll come back to Ghana and look at the pressing issues that need to be addressed immediately. In the studio with me is Evans Mensah. He's editor here at JoyNews and head of our political desk. Evans, it's good to have you.
Thank you.
Now, being the head of the political desk, I know the things that you had to deal with, including abuse, sometimes physical, verbal, of our reporters. Tell us why this campaign is important.
So this is a campaign that affects everybody. Think about it. Just imagine a day without any media whatsoever. So when I say any media, I'm talking about social media, traditional media, radio, television, and all the other social media networks that you use. That for one day, it's nothing. There's no news, there's no music on the radio, there's no television to watch, there's no Facebook, there's no Twitter, etc. And just imagine what your life will be like. That is why everywhere around the world, protecting media freedoms is such a big deal. And except in this country where in the last many years there was a decade between 1992 when this new constitution was birthed and up until the early 2000s when people really fought for press freedom. People went to jail for it. There are people, if you go way back into our history, people actually died for press freedom, and they made it possible for us to today have this plural media that we enjoy.
And to have this space within which we can speak. Evans, I'm going to come back to you, but just so our audience on radio are aware, this is a campaign for media freedom that's been launched here on the Joy News channel. We're live in our studios in Kukumlimle, digital address GA09925339. Of course, we're glad that you join us with your thoughts on social media. The hashtag is Defend Media Freedom, and I have given you the number through which you can text us. Okay, let us know your thoughts on WhatsApp. This is a launch for a freer media space.
My name is Daniel Daze.
Bernard Avle,
Kwame Sefaka,
Right, Nana Amfo.
David Ando,
Virginia Tenkran,
Edward Kwabi,
Joseph Akable,
Kojo Akoto-Boateng,
Umaru Sandaman,
Alfred Okanse,
Captain Smart.
Nana Majimana Sante.
Malika Basta.
Samson Ladi Ayenini.
press freedom means
protection to journalists
to go about their work
without any form of inhibitions,
undue influence,
Hindrance or intimidation or fear.
free from harassment.
like a banker would go to their bank and work in the morning, like a teacher would go to the classroom in the morning and teach. And
the opportunity and the space to operate and keep the powers that be in check, and also to drive growth. So press freedom
Is that which enables me to tell the stories that matter the most to the audience.
And then to be able to hold powerful people accountable.
Press freedom to me means that I have
legal backing, support of the state, support of the security agencies to be able to
be fair, to be probing, and to be development oriented.
press freedom is
absolute freedom, but freedom with some responsibility is very vital for the survival of any democracy. In fact, I feel it is part of the birthright of every citizen.
so yeah, without press freedom, there can be no press.
Without press freedom, there can be no press. And without the press, well, I don't want to imagine what will happen in a country like ours. Evans, you were telling us about the sacrifices that people have made, the ultimate sacrifices some of them have made for us to enjoy the space we're enjoying at the moment, even though there are still issues.
And I was making the point that there was a reason why that was the case, that people felt the need to lay down their lives just so that press freedom will be protected. People went to jail for it. And the reason why that is important is fundamentally because of the ordinary person, the everyday Ghanaian. Because, listen, in a society where it's stratified, not all of us can have a voice. I mean, so democracy itself is you elect people to represent you in parliament, you elect the president to represent your interest. The one of the ways, in fact, the most effective way that the rest of our citizens can have a voice in the way we are governed is through the media, without which your voice won't be heard. And so think about it. Now in Ghana, and this is anecdotal, but it's powerful, when there's fire outbreak anywhere, instead of people calling the fire service, the first people or group of individuals will call is a journalist or a media house. An armed robbery is happening, you are witnessing. Instead of calling the police, they'll call the journalist or a media house. I've had calls when somebody has seen domestic abuse, a domestic violence case. They would rather call a media house than call, say, a DOVSU. Now, that should tell you how important the media is in our lives. And let's talk about all the big things that the media, through advocacy, had done. So last year, we, through collaboration with other, I guess, groups, helped to raise funds to build Convanoche's NICU, right? A neonatal intensive care unit that saved lives, right? Because of the power of the media to mobilize. That is why the press is so important.
Right.
But sometimes we forget that there was a time in Ghana in the 90s where the only media outlet out there was GBC, and diversity wasn't there. Then people cried for change. Now in 2009, we almost take that for granted, that there was a time in our history, very recently, that there was only one media outlet. And I spoke to a man who challenged the status quo, right? Who said, it's enough. We're tired of having one mouthpiece, which often was a propaganda mouthpiece of government. And he, together with others, including the current president, decided to challenge the status quo and introduce a private broadcasting outlet called Radio I. That is Dr. Charles Rekubrobe.
And it wasn't easy for him ever.
He's been telling you about it. I've been speaking to him today. He illustrates that period.
Radio I came. I didn't really want to set up a radio station. But if you look back to the story of Ghana, you know, there's always, we have democratic elections, and they tend to be reasonable the first time round. But what has tended to happen is that immediately after the election and the government is elected, we don't have anything but a state media which is disseminating the news. And so by default, it becomes an arm of the state, and we don't get dissenting and contrary and other views. And so before you realize, the government of the day has effectively taken over the functions of the press and is doing propaganda. And after looking at this, I really felt that we could not repeat the same experiment in the Fourth Republic of Ghana, where we will go through a reasonably fair election, the government will be elected, and we're back to the monopoly of GBC broadcasting station.
So that's Rekubrobe there.
So that's the story.
Making the point.
We sometimes forget that there was a time like this. Okay. Now we have Joy FM, we have City FM, we have all the TV stations, and we have sometimes taken that for granted. But we must also emphasize that as much as we need to campaign that we maintain what we have and entrench it, journalists and media people have responsibilities as well. We are not saying that because the journalists have been assaulted in the past and there's a need to entrench democracy through effective, strong media, journalists could do whatever they want. We are also saying that part of this campaign is also to bring attention to quality journalism.
And responsible journalism
when we
as
do
well.
wrong, of course, hold us accountable. Right. But it's not a solution to, I guess, kill a fly with a sledgehammer. We need to keep and protect.
Evans Mensah is head of political desk here at JoyNews, and certainly he's given you enough reason for you to understand the importance of this campaign. We'll be hearing from the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. They have some damning statistics to share and a lot more. But right now, let's listen to reports by editor Israel Laye on his return from a Media Freedom Forum held in London.
The event brought together delegates from over 100 countries, including journalists, academics, civil society groups championing media freedoms, as well as government representatives. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland provided frightening statistics to underscore the need for the conference.
Today, journalism is difficult and dangerous work. UNESCO reports that last year alone, 99 members of the media were killed around the world. And by the end of last year, Reporters Without Frontiers says 348 journalists were in prison. In fact, the 4 deadliest recorded years for journalists have occurred within the past decade.
Conference co-host, the UK's Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, highlighted why journalists, though may make mistakes, are so important in any society.
The strongest safeguard against the dark side of power is accountability and scrutiny. And few institutions fulfill that role more effectively than a free media. Real accountability comes from the risk of exposure by a media that cannot be controlled or suborned. And the evidence for this is very clear. Of the 10 cleanest countries in the world, as ranked by Transparency International, 7 are also in the top 10 of the World Press Freedom Index. Meanwhile, of the 10 most corrupt countries, 4 are in the bottom 10 for media freedom. Now, powerful people value their reputations, so the sunlight of transparency is the greatest deterrent to wrongdoing.
He advised his colleague politicians around the world they are better off with a media that feels free to criticize governments.
For those of us who are sometimes on the receiving end of criticism, we should also reflect on the wisdom of Nelson Mandela, when he said, "The media are a mirror through which we see ourselves and others perceive us, warts, blemishes and all. Such criticism can only help us to grow by calling attention to those of our actions and omissions which do not measure up to our people's expectations."
The UK Special Envoy on Press Freedom, Amal Clooney, made the point that the defense of media freedom encompasses the regulatory framework governing the operations of media houses.
And the indictment against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has alarmed journalists at newspapers around the world, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and the Guardian, because, as the editor of the Washington Post has put it, it, quote, criminalizes common practices in journalism that have long served the public interest. With many governments also insulting and threatening journalists and seeking to throttle media organizations through strict controls on ownership, licensing, and online activity, we have reached the point where there are few places in the world where journalists are not surveilled, harassed, disenfranchised, or subject to self-censorship.
Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah, who was at the head of the Ghana delegation, conceded government's record on press freedom has suffered a dent in recent years.
Unfortunately, as the world goes through a period of attacks on media, Ghana in recent years has also experienced its share, despite our good track record. The worst being the cold-blooded murder of Ahmed Swale, believed to be connected with his work as an associate of the media organization Tiger Eye PI. Regrettably, our investigative agencies have not made much headway in arresting and punishing perpetrators of this and other acts of intimidation. Indeed, it appears we took our media excellence and public tolerance for granted. But now, we have had to face up to the challenging and changing realities and do more. Abuse and attack on journalists cannot and must not be accepted. It must not only be condemned, but must be fought head-on.
The conference established a multi-million-dollar fund for the safety of journalists, a number of initiatives for the defense and protection of media freedom, including an international task force to help governments deliver on their commitment made at the conference, were also announced. So the UK and Canada have taken the lead in the defense of media freedom and managed to rally a good number of countries to come along. Politicians the world over would, however, not willingly pursue this cause unless their citizens also appreciate why this is of critical importance, so they could bring pressure to bear in ensuring that the right of the journalist to report facts freely and to defend, expose, and advance the truth without fear of retaliation, reprisal, violence, or imprisonment is guaranteed. Back home in Accra, I ask myself, do the citizens know that the role of the journalist is so important? That probably could be a good point to start. Israel Lying, JoyNews.
So do you know the importance of journalists in this country? That is the big conversation we're having as we launch this campaign for a freer media space. Suleiman Abrahama is Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. He's joined me here in the studio. Mr. Abrahama, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And who will be joining us from the GJA? It is Roland Afilmoni. He is the president of the association. He will also join us. He's joining us live from the press center. Mr. Moni, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. And also, I have here in the studio Raymond Aqua. Raymond Aqua has been responsible for research, and he leads our fact-checking team. So Raymond will take us through the statistics as we know it. Why is it even an important situation? Why is it even a scary situation for media players? So we'll be talking about that. But if you're listening to us, we're here live in our studios at Kokomlemle on the Joy News channel. We're also on Adom FM. We're on Joy 99.7 FM. We're live at myjoyonline.com. The hashtag remains defend media freedom. Defend media freedom. Let's hear you as well, Raymond. Let's go through the statistics that we have. What picture does it paint?
So let's start from February 2017 to June 2019. Within that period, we are talking about 41 different violations, and specifically, we know of the killing of Ahmed Swale. That's single incident. And it's instructive because the only other time that this has happened before was in 2015, where Abanga was killed. And prior to that time, it's been almost 20 years since there was a similar incident in this country. And that's when we even got downgraded by the Freedom House's ranking from what used to be a free, what they call media society, to a partially or partly free media society. So it's instructive to note that particular one. Assault on journalists mostly is in the larger grouping. There are 21 of these incidents, and right from what happened to Latif, through to what happened to Parker, through to what happened to Karen and Co. at the Men's Gold Place. You do recall the incident that involves the Ghanaian Times journalists and all of the people that have been related to this. There are specific incidents in Kumasi and other places too that actually encapsulates the assault situation in a proper mode. There has been attacks on Media House as institutions too, and we've had this incident happening in the Brown Afro region and other places too across the country. We do know that there's also been arrest and detention of some journalists and also people in the course of their duties, and 2 of these incidents have happened. In the case of threats, 6 of these incidents have been recorded specifically, and if you want to open it up, there's also been seizure and destruction of equipment of the various media in this particular case. We're talking about 4 of these incidents, and one phenomenon that used not to be very common, but it seems to be rearing its ugly head, is that of shutdown of media institutions. We do recall what happened to the the stations affiliated mostly to the opposition, and the way people have complained about how these media institutions were shut down. We can say that there's many of these incidents, but 2 specifically proud to putting this all together. Then there's been torture of a journalist too. So in all, we're talking about 41 separate and different incidents of violations against media.
41.
Yes.
And you had a bit of a breakdown as to exactly how these happened. Do you want to go over that again?
Okay, so specifically, I mean, yes, if I go through, I will bring up the killing 1, to the assault on journalists, 21. We're talking about attack on media houses, 4, arbitrary arrest and detentions being 2, threats being 6, seizure, destruction of equipment of journalists being 4, then shutdown being 2, torture 1. All put together is 41, and let's not spread it very far. We're talking about 41 from the February 2017 till somewhere around June this year. There are incidents, of course, we can't say this captures all incidents in the country. There are incidents that are really outside of these parameters, but this is just an indication of how the situation is getting bad by the day when you compare it to previous times.
Okay, so I'm not quite sure, Mr. Burma, what you make of this. I mean, I would say that an attack on one single journalist is enough for us to make noise and for us to, you know, defend media freedom as we're doing now. 41 from Raymond Aqua's statistics, 31 from your own statistics. Why do you think journalism has become so dangerous at this point? Or is it just something we are beginning to realize, but it has always been there?
Well, let me start by commending Multimedia for this laudable campaign. Of course, over the years, one of the critical challenges in dealing with press freedom advocacy has been the concern that even as we speak about it, we talk about it, you know, litigate about them, the journalists and media houses that are the victims sometimes do not show the concern. So it is really encouraging and commendable that Multimedia has decided to embark on this campaign. Let me also state, by way of perhaps correcting, what you stated, that Raymond's presentation indicate that there have been 41 incidents, and our records have 31. I think the data, I don't know, but I believe that this is largely from our database.
The period.
That is mainly what we do, part of the things that we do. And in the last report that we issued, we did indicate that there have been 31 individual attacks, but the victims involved in these attacks, when put together, would give you 41 people. Right. So there have been 31 incidents of violations, but then the victims would be 41. And I think that that is what perhaps Raymond's compilation is alluding to. And as I said, I believe that this is largely from our database. Of course, I don't know where else Raymond may have.
I mean, the point really is that the number of journalists being attacked is just getting outrageous. Yes, that's the point, essentially. And I'll come back to you. I just want you to ponder on this for me, because when I come back, I'd like for us to talk about it. Would you say, from what people have said, that this is really because there's been so many irresponsible journalists in the system, and that's why we're recording this number of attacks on journalists? I'll have you ponder on that for me briefly. Let's go to the press center, where Afo Moni, who is president of the GJA, is joining us live. Mr. Moni, thank you for your time once again this afternoon. I'm just asking the same question. I'm just going to ask you the question I've asked Mr. Brima here, about why you think that journalism seems to have become a dangerous industry. Mr. Moni, I believe that you've heard me. If you did not, we're trying to figure out why it's become dangerous to be
Please
a
repeat
journalist.
the question. Because of a technical hitch, I would plead that you come again with the question.
On March 27, 2018, Latif Idris was attacked at the police headquarters. January 17, 2019, Ahmed Swali of Tiger IPI was killed. March 14, 2019, 3 reporters of the Ghanaian Times newspaper were assaulted. February 27, 2017, Kotoko Express journalist Gideon Bochi was attacked.
My name is Daniel Daze.
Bernard Avle.
Kwame Sefaka.
Bright Nana Amfo.
David Ando.
Virginia Tenkran.
Edward Kwabi.
Joseph Akable.
Kojo Akoto-Boateng.
Umaru Sandaman.
Alfred Okanse.
Captain Smart.
Nana Majimana Sante.
Samson Ladi Anyenini.
Press freedom means
Protection to journalists
to go about their work
without any form of inhibitions,
undue influence,
hindrance or intimidation or fear.
free from harassment.
like a banker would go to their bank and work in the morning, like a teacher would go to the classroom in the morning and teach. And
The opportunity and the space to operate and keep the powers that be in check, and also to drive growth. So press freedom
Is that which enables me to tell the stories that matter the most to the audience.
And then to be able to hold powerful people accountable.
Press freedom to me means that I have
legal backing, support of the state, support of the security agencies to be able to
be fair, to be probing, and to be development oriented.
Press freedom is
absolute freedom, but freedom with some responsibility is very vital for the survival of any democracy. In fact, I feel it is part of the birthright of every citizen.
So yeah, without press freedom, there can be no press.
Welcome back. Sincere apologies for that hitch there, but you're live on Joy 99.7 FM, and this is Joy News coming to you live from our studios in Kokomlemle. We're also on Adom 106.3 FM. I have Alpha Moni, who is president of the Ghana Journalists Association, joining us live from the press center. Mr. Moni, if you heard my question, it was all about finding the problem, the root, which we believe that will help us deal with the solution. Is it irresponsible journalism going up that's leading us to the statistics, the damning statistics about attacks on journalists? What do you think really is the problem here?
I think there are a confluence of factors which explain the vertiginous increase in the number of attacks against journalists. One is a lack of safety consciousness on the part of journalists. Impunity plays a dominant role in this scenario. One thing about impunity is that if it's not addressed, it reignites a kind of self-propelling and re-energizing cycle, which then makes it very difficult to uproot. When perpetrators willfully go after journalists, when they flout the law, when they find themselves on the wrong side of the law, and then when the system fails to cause them or force them to taste the biting edge of the law, the impunity then gains firmer roots. Then lack of literal literacy. People don't understand what we do and why we do certain things. So, as I said, the factors there are a cocktail of factors, but impunity is a dominant one. So the system should be seen to be dealing surgically with the perpetrators of attack against journalists. But what makes it so difficult, hellishly difficult to deal with, is when the perpetrators are so politically connected or they are part of the security system. Then the show continues. Okay. But this ugly spectacle must end.
Okay.
Because the warnings are flashing and the dangers are looming.
So the dangers are looming,
and
the warnings are flashing.
To show.
Like you say, we need to do something about it. And we're just coming from a global press engagement at which we understand that the UK, for example, is setting up a committee for safety of journalists. And they are expected to produce an action plan on the safety of journalists. I'm just reading from the Government of Ghana's website as well, and it says that the National Coordinating Committee on Safe and Responsible Journalism in Ghana is expected to publish a final framework that's supposed to guide what they're calling responsible journalism. Are you aware about this framework? Do you know what's in it?
Certainly, last Friday, the stakeholders met in Accra to try to fine-tune this framework. And we can say, without any fear of contradiction, that it's not a lost cause, and light is flickering at the end of the tunnel. That something is being done to stem the litany of attacks against journalists.
Okay, Mr. Moni, hold on for me. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. Let me engage Mr. Brima. Mr. Brima, you aware of this framework?
Yes, I am. As the GJ president rightly said, there was a meeting on Friday that I was part of, but there were a few questions that were raised, including the designation of the framework as a framework on safe and responsible journalism in Ghana. Some of us raised concern about the terminology responsible, because it is a post-independence ideological term that is often used by governments to mean the type of journalism that supports the agenda of a government of the day. In other words, governments would sometimes say whatever they are doing is in furtherance of the interests of the state, and therefore, if a journalist does something that the government is not happy about, it can easily be misconstrued to be something irresponsible. And therefore, we are of the view that if any framework like that should exist, and indeed the international mechanism is on safety of journalists and combating the issue of impunity. So it is a problematic thing to try and conjoin it.
Which is why I indicated that I wanted you to address the issue for me. Is irresponsible journalism really the problem? Because when you read the report that tells us about the framework that government wants to launch or put together, it presupposes that there is a real problem about irresponsible journalism. And of course, there has been some irresponsible journalism, but do you think that really that is the problem, the mentality that you speak about when it comes to journalism?
You see, Gifty, I would be very, very strong in my position that we shouldn't try and further this whole terminology called responsible journalism. Because the question is, in whose eyes? And I made it clear at that forum that, for example, there are radio stations today that are broadcasting that if the previous government were in power, they would see everything they do as irresponsible because virtually it is not in the interest of the government. I believe that some radio stations that have been shut down, if they were still operating now, the current government may see a lot of the things, if not all of the things they do, as being irresponsible. I think I don't know whether there are any benchmarks that are set forth as benchmarks for determining what is responsible journalism. For the ethics of journalism. Exactly. And that is why we should emphasize professionalism, because if we talk about the Bar Association, we're talking about professionalism. If we're talking about the medical field, we're talking about professionalism. So we shouldn't then push that terminology of responsible journalism. Okay. Because responsibility in whose eyes? What may be responsible to you may not be responsible for me because we have different interests. But when it is about professionalism, there is middle ground and there are the ethical rules that we can use to determine whether something that has been done is professional or not. Every government, when they want to push a particular agenda, they focus on the issue of responsibility. And I think that it's a problematic terminology that we shouldn't allow to thrive.
I do notice, by the way, that if you take what the UK is doing, it looks to me, when you read their brief, that the focus is on holding to account those who threaten journalists. I'm not really seeing that in the framework, and I believe that you share in that opinion as well.
Exactly, and that is why I say it should be a framework on safety of journalists and countering the issue of impunity, rather than calling it a framework on safe and responsible journalism. I think it wouldn't achieve the intended purpose at the end of the day if truly the purpose is about promoting safety of journalists in this country and combating the phenomenon of impunity.
We're not done with this yet. I'm going to tell you about a breaking news story, but this is the launch of the Defend Free Media campaign we're having here on JoyNews. So coming to you live from our JoyNews studios in Kokomlemle. We're live on Adom 106.3 FM, on Joy 99.7 FM. I've been doing this with Raymond Aqua, leading our research team, and of course, Suleiman Abraham, Executive Director of Media Foundation for West Africa. Roland Afilmoni is DJA President. He joins us live from the Press Center, which is the DJA's headquarters. But this is a campaign, and indeed, we're looking to safeguard the job that's called journalism. About defending media freedom. The hashtag remains Defend Media Freedom. I'm here with Executive Director of Media Foundation for West Africa, Suleiman Abraham. GJA President joins us from the Press Center, and of course we'll be joined by Ken Ashigbe. Well, the campaign has been welcomed by Deputy Information Minister Pius Hajide, who says the initiative must cover all aspects of threats against media freedom. Hear him.
I don't think that there should be any particular focus on any particular stakeholder, especially the government. Because if you check the literature, when I've done extensive work on the matter, a lot of the assaults on journalists do not come from within government circles. So if the campaign of Joy FM has to be meaningful, it has to be broad in its nature, and it should not be targeted at government. And target journalism also can be problematic, if you ask me, especially when it is not grounded in the facts. And the facts are that a lot of these assaults have happened at a lot of our sporting events, for instance, and there's a long litany of those. And the media, and I expect that Joy FM would also focus on those and not on the government, as it were. But of course, we do consider
the incidences of assault have involved state actors like the police, which come under government.
No, some of the assaults have involved the police, but a lot of them have been from, in fact, the vast majority have been from the ordinary citizenry.
But generally, I mean, the whole idea is to press home the need for press freedom to be upheld. I believe that's a good initiative.
Yes, it is very much in tandem with the desired outcomes of what government is seeking to do, creating a conducive environment for the practice of safe and professional journalism. So we welcome the campaign. We think that it has come at the right time.
Pius Enam Hajide, he's the Deputy Information Minister there. We're still having that conversation here. Like I said, Ken Ashigbe will be joining us in the studio. He's just joined us. Ms. Ashigbe, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And it's good to see you. So we're still talking about media freedom, and the hashtag is Defend Media Freedom, and that is the big talk, like I said. Since you're just joining us, I'm just going to take your thoughts about what's been done. We discussed responsible and irresponsible journalism, and Suleiman Ibrahima is of the view that the more we talk about irresponsible journalism and responsible, the terminology is really neither here nor there. If you talk, you're talking real journalism, you should talk professional journalism as against unprofessional journalism. The question was, is there a rise in irresponsible journalism, and that's what's leading to the attacks we're seeing on journalists? He didn't think so.
Well, you see, I remember, I think it was last week, there was a news story where the Minister for Information was talking about the new framework we're trying to put together, and I had a conversation with him. Okay. The tendency to try to link the beating attack of journalists with unprofessional journalism, that nexus is akin to saying that rape is happening because people are dressing in a particular way. We've actually
heard someone say that, a minister say that anyway.
Well, so what we then do is that we give ammunition to people to justify the reasons why these attacks are going on. But you know that even in places where the Buka is won, you know, there's still rape going on in there. And if you analyze very clearly the people who have been beaten, you find out that most of those people are mostly not the unprofessional journalists. And mostly the unprofessional ones even go without being attacked. Yes, there are issues with unprofessionalism in, you know, every profession. And journalism is not, you know, it's also part of that. But most of the people who would do these attacks is not because of the unprofessional journalists. You know, that happens. So I would want us, when we're having these conversations, to separate the two. It is important that we work on professionalism, in ensuring that the fact that we liberalized our media and then we got a lot more people engaged in it. So definitely there's been a shortfall between the supply, you know, and the demand for very professional journalists. And also the fact that, you know, even as we talk about all of that, the people who are managing media, how many of them are also professional at the way they do that? We need to deal with that and deal with that very comprehensively and improve on it. But then we need to also look at this whole conversation about the attacks and look at the underlying factors, because there's a plethora of them, and ensure that we are dealing with them. But for me, I think one of the big ones is because this has never happened. This thing that we're doing today has never happened. Most of the time, the journalists themselves do not take this thing seriously.
Which has been your strongest position on this matter. I'll come back so that we talk about that. But GJA President joins us from the press center. Mr. Moni, I'm just going to read for you portions of this, the news we heard about the framework that's been developed. It says, The violence against, so it talks about 4 areas that the draft framework is highlighting, and it's to ensure an intensive education for all stakeholders on their roles to ensure a safe and responsible media environment. It goes on to talk about how this will be a one-stop shop, and I'm quoting from the information on the Government of Ghana website, that is going to be a one-stop shop platform to provide accurate annual statistics on attacks, safety of journalists, and complaints against media practitioners. Do you get the sense that this framework seems to focus more on journalists perhaps as the problem? Do you get that sense when you read the framework, what the framework is supposed to do?
As I said, we had the opportunity to look at all the areas comprehensively, so that we'll come up with a framework which will address the root cause of attacks, incessant attacks against journalists. I do agree with Sule and co that the idea to overemphasize lack of responsible journalism as a causal factor, you know, is problematic. Okay. Because we can readily say that the assassination in the most tragic circumstances of Ahmed Swale was not as a result of irresponsible journalism. The battering of Latif at the citadel of security, CID headquarters, by policemen, was not the result of irresponsible journalism. We can go on and on to underline the fact that many of the attacks are not the result of irresponsible journalism.
Okay.
It has been said, and it's best repeating, that impunity is largely to blame.
Impunity.
For the ascendancy of attacks against journalists. The scandalous frequency of such attacks. So we are happy that the framework has a provision which will ensure the prosecution of the perpetrators of attacks against journalists.
Well,
Because all the summarizing, all the...
Mr. Ashigbe, for example, has said over and over again that the media isn't doing enough for itself when it comes to standing up for a free media space. How do you respond to that? You are the organization that's leading journalists in this country. The point he makes is that we have not done enough. We're not using the power he says we have enough.
And Ken, my brother, will have to explain what he means by what the media not doing enough. But Landers teaches us that the naked truth is better than well-dressed lie. And the naked truth is that if within the media front, some do not care a hoot when certain journalists are attacked. We have allowed, some of us have allowed ourselves to be squeezed into a certain partisan mold. And as a result, the media is fashion-riven on partisan lines, MPP against NDC. Mm. So that when perceived NDC journalists are attacked, MPP journalists will care less. And when perceived MPP journalists are attacked, NDC journalists will applaud the criminality. So so as journalists, we need to pull in one professional direction.
Mm. Okay. Okay.
We need to close our ranks and realize the severity of such attacks and the profound implications on our democracy and other aspects of our national life.
Okay, Mr. Moni, that is a sad reality. That is a sad reality, Mr. Ashigbe. You would agree with that. The ownership and the remuneration of journalists have become, a big deal. You talk about ownership of journalism or media outlets in the country, and you see politics written all over it. So the point that he makes, it's a sad reality. How then do we deal with this and push towards the professionalism that will ensure safe journalism.
Well, I agree with him that, you know, the division of newsrooms and, you know, are part to blame, and we really need to deal with that. But I think that generally for all of us, it is time that we all had a reawakening, you know, because there are times when these things are happening, and even, you know, media houses that are professional themselves, it's as if we really do not care too much about what it is that happens to us. You know, so apart from the political challenges that we need to definitely deal with and call upon all of us to be professional in the way we're doing our things, there is a particular thing about all of us as journalists where we need to realize the fact that our only strength is when we all come together and we are able to defend ourselves. A typical example that I give all the time, and it's unfortunately it's multimedia. When one of your own, Latif, was beaten, and the GJA decided that there was a particular event that was going to happen, and the GJA called by the police, and the GJA was saying that till we saw action, the GJA said they were pulling back. Multimedia covered that event. You see, so we all need to.
But wouldn't you call that professional journalism? Professional journalism where the space is not. It's a space where everybody can play, within which everybody can play. So you give equal opportunity to everyone.
Yes, I agree. I completely agree with the fact that you want to give equal opportunity to everyone. But you also need to realize the fact that there is no way in which a professional military person, when he comes under attack, would not use weapons that he has, legitimate weapons. So this is not to say that when GJA called on that, it's not to say we're not covering the police at all. They are saying that there is a particular issue you're not dealing with. Deal with that. And this is one of the tools we have. We need to get to that particular point where we decide. Let me give you another example. You have journalists go to a place and another one is attacked. There's no sense of purpose to say that once another person is attacked, let's all train our cameras on that so that we are able to gather some evidence. You know, so that whole thinking of realizing the fact that our strength, it's in our numbers. And also the fact that as when we say that the pen is mightier than the sword, that using the pen to be able to advocate, how many times you see us as journalists generally focusing on some of these attacks.
But Mr. Ashby, there's been a lot of campaign, especially even after Latif's attack. People talked a lot. There was a hashtag going on social media, media organizing. Here on multimedia, we did so much.
I agree.
Would you say that that really is the problem?
Oh, it is one of the problems. Let me give you a typical example. When these court cases are called about the lady that was beating at the MPP headquarters, apart from multimedia, how many other media houses do you see go cover it? But you take Gregory Foco's case that's happening, you'll find out that everybody else is covering it. I'm just saying that the same way that the same attention that we give to other issues, we should give it to this issue, because you see, as Suleiman said, it is fundamental when it comes to our rights. Media rights, once it is gone. So we need to all realize that that is what it is. But definitely the division of the newsrooms along partisan lines, and also the fact that we've had a lot of politicians also owning media has also tended to dump our fight. That is why we all need to come back to that realization that we need to fight this together.
Okay, so perhaps we may not be able to find all the solutions to the problems that have been listed, but at least one thing that we can do, which we are doing right now with this campaign, Mr. Brima, is to be able to rally media organizations or rally media people behind this campaign and say, look, let's demand a freer media space. You'll be doing the launch for us, but I want you to, listening to Mr. Shibe, listening to Mr. Moni about the problems that exist and how we can deal with it. Professionalism, really, how easily can we deal with it?
Well, I think that it's a good start that we are mobilizing ourselves. It's a good start that we're having frank conversations amongst ourselves, because sometimes, perhaps as Mr. Shibe is saying, the frustrations that one goes through. We've had occasions where we are defending a journalist, we are pushing for the rights of a journalist, and before we realize the journalist has been, cornered somewhere to receive some compensation, and we are left in the lurk.
It makes for interesting reference what happened recently with the modernghana.com.
Yes, I mean, a number of such incidences have happened, and sometimes it can be very, very frustrating. I need to also say that talking about press freedom is not just about the attacks. It is about the state creating the enabling environment that allows the media industry to thrive. Elsewhere, well, maybe journalists may not be beaten, but governments may deliberately decide that we are pulling all advertising from a particular media organization that is quite critical to support one that is, almost literally doing the propaganda for us. There are laws that sometimes government may decide to apply it in a very whimsical and discriminatory way, such as what the NCA recently did in terms of shutting down certain particular media organizations in the name of applying a court ruling. And one wonders why others who were also affected by the same court ruling didn't suffer the same penalties.
To be fair though, wouldn't you say that they were implementing, if you like, the regulations?
Well, but people have said, publish the names of those who are affected. And I called an official of the NCA at the time and I said, look, if you are truly applying the court judgment, I mean, on your own list, there are a number of organizations that have not regularized for a number of years now. Why are those still operating, or why are those still on air? And if you are saying that you are implementing it gradually, what is the mechanism for deciding who is shut down now and who is shut down tomorrow? I think that the state has to be fair. The state has to ensure that the powers it has in terms of, state agencies, departments, being the ones that control the advertising pairs, is not used to undermine quality journalism, because the state cannot be pushing for, what they call responsible journalism, which I would call professional journalism. When the state decides at one point or the other to use its power in terms of the resources to undermine critical journalism. Because for me, what matters and what should matter to all of us is critical journalism. Journalism that holds the public to account, journalism that holds duty bearers to account, journalism that exposes wrongdoing. Whether or not government is happy is another matter. Because I've always said, good journalism would always hurt somebody. And that means that anytime good journalism is done, somebody is going to get unhappy. Unfortunately, most of the time, that somebody would end up being government, because they have the responsibility of making sure that, we develop as a country and the resources that are meant for the people are used in ways that benefit the people.
Well, this is one thing. For me, I would say sometimes that I don't really have a lot to die for. But I always find it scary when I think of it, that one thing that I am willing to sacrifice my life for is the job that I do, is journalism. And I don't say it because I'm sitting here on TV. I don't say it here because of this campaign. But really, really, it is something that I mean with all of my heart. And so this campaign for me is really personal. And I believe that for journalists as well. Someone has just sent a message, and in that message is talking about how all media organizations ought to come together for us to do this. I'm just going to read that for you. He says, all media should quickly come together and stand strongly for press freedom now. Media workers should be allowed to work in a serene environment. I urge media workers not to be afraid of their work that they're doing. And this is coming from Fiam Nogo in Abo. Thank you very much for your comment. We'll take some comments on Facebook, but I also have you on standby, Mr. Moni, Mr. Ashigbe, and Mr. Brian Marcos. I'll have you, say your final words before we do the launch. But what are Facebookers saying about this campaign? Defend yourself by moving away from cheap journalism, mediocrity, lies, name spoiling, and practice good journalism, and you will experience freedom from the people you think attacks you. Vladimir Jima. It's a very interesting point you make there. I'm not sure what my panelists will think, though. Marshall says, but mind you, incorruptible journalists, not people like the so-called ace journalist who claim to fight corruption, but you think that he's more corrupt, but you need to provide evidence to substantiate such comment if you make them. El Gostin says, launch of responsible journalism campaign. And we've been talking about this word, and it looks like this word is going to keep coming up. Responsible journalism. Suleimana here explains that responsible in the eyes of who? Let's go with professionalism. I believe it works. Quick few more comments and then we'll call it a wrap on Facebook. Only corrupt and bad intent politicians and public office holders will want to abuse, threaten, or deny the right of the media. When you have good intentions, you have nothing to worry about, no matter the office you occupy. We all need the media to be updated on what's going on around the world. Certainly, we all need the media. Sometimes the police will do something to you. Sometimes among the police officers themselves, there are issues and they need the media to raise it for them. You go to the police, they don't deal with you fairly, you think. You go to sometimes even the judiciary, they don't deal with you fairly, you think. And all you turn to is the media. So why won't we protect this group of people who are putting their lives on the line to do this job? All right, I'll just take a very quick pause here.
My name is Daniel Daze.
Bernard Avle.
Kwame Sefakan.
Right, Nana Amfo.
David Ando.
Virginia Tenkran.
Edward Kwabi.
Joseph Akable.
Kojo Akoto-Boateng.
Umaru Sandaman.
Alfred Okanse.
Captain Smart.
Nana Majimana Sante.
Samson Ladi Anyenini.
Press freedom means
Protection to journalists
to go about their work without any form of inhibitions,
undue influence,
Hindrance or intimidation or fear.
Free from harassment.
like a banker would go to their bank and work in the morning, like a teacher would go to the classroom in the morning and teach. And
The opportunity and the space to operate and keep the powers that be in check, and also to drive growth. So press freedom
Is that which enables me to tell the stories that matter the most to the audience.
And then to be able to hold powerful people accountable.
Press freedom to me means that I have
legal backing, support of the state, support of the security agencies to be able to
be fair, to be probing, and to be development oriented.
Press freedom is
absolute freedom, but freedom with some responsibility. It's very vital for the survival of any democracy. In fact, I feel it is part of the birthright of every citizen.
So yeah, without press freedom, there can be no press.
Without press freedom, your life can be very, very difficult, and you don't want that. Robert Akoto Amwafo is Country Director of Amnesty International. He joins us so we can do this launch. Robert, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
So what does this mean to you, for those of you who are champions of human rights, etc.? What does a campaign like this mean to you?
It's very important, and it is the core of our work, because many of the times when we have to go and protect people, it is the media house breaking the news for us to be able to go and give the defense that people need. So for us, we are joining this campaign because we believe it's pivot to the work that we do.
It's a pivot to the work that you do. So well, I'm going to have them speak, tell us their final thoughts about all the discussions that we've had. There's a list of the problems that we face as journalists. They've spoken about it. The impunity, the unprofessional journalists that sometimes make it also difficult for the professional ones to do their job, because then they attract all of these negativity, which is not really their fault. We've also spoken about the ownership of media houses, which is a big problem. The ownership of media houses that's littered with politics, the division in the newsrooms, like Mr. Shibe says, and the inability of sometimes the media themselves to stand up for one another to demand a freer media space. Let me go to Mr. Alpha Moni, GJA president, who's joining us live from the press center. Your final comment, Mr. Moni, as we launch this campaign today.
An exercise in perfect timing and a campaign worth supporting by all journalists in this country, because an attack against one journalist is an attack against all journalists. An attack against all journalists is an attack against our democracy. An attack against our democracy is an attack against the very soul and spirit of this nation. So as we speak, the soul and spirit of this nation are bleeding profusely. And we need to take practical steps to stanch the blood flow. This means coming together to punish the perpetrators of attacks against journalists, and for journalists not to lend themselves to easy attack, not to fall easy prey to attacks.
Okay. Right.
They should be ethically conscious and responsible, and master courage. And as Pericle said, freedom is a possession of those only who have the courage to defend it.
Courage to defend the job and be professional. Mr. Money, we'll say a very big thanks to you for joining us, but you'll still be there as we launch it. I'm going to take it from you, Mr. Ashigbe, so we go that way. Your final thoughts on
Well,
this?
thank you very much. And for me, I think this is really a good beginning. And I'm happy with, you know, the promo you've put together where you have the voices of everybody from various media houses. This is not one of the things that we want to win audiences with. This is one of the things that we want to salvage the soul of this particular country that we have. Because if you look at the people who beat up, yes, we have the state actors, but there are other people who are non-state actors as well. The major challenge we have is that when these things happen, that there's no punishment for it. So we need to ensure that the rules are implemented, that we need to ensure that we're defending. Because you see, no matter what happens, finally, when your back is against the wall, the organization that you would run to is the media. So we all need to realize it, that when we don't defend the media's rights, we're just cutting our tongues and thinking that we have some meat to chew, but it's ourselves. Yeah. And we all need to work together in concert to ensure that this actually happens. There's strength in unity. And with this, I hope all the media will be able to come together with all right-thinking Ghanaians to be able to support this.
Going forward with the campaign, all right-thinking members of society and all the media coming together so we can push this campaign together. Now, even if you're a politician and you think you have power on your side at this time, remember that the power changes has all the time, and it will change, and you certainly will run to the media. Your thoughts, Mr. Brima?
Well,
and I'd love for you to, you know, focus on moving the campaign forward, if you don't mind.
Well, I think, as they say, the press freedom is the lifeblood of democracy. And for all those who cherish democracy, what we need to come to terms with is, if press freedom dies, our democracy dies. And I see this as something that is really commendable. It is a campaign that is being initiated or started by multimedia, but I would say that it shouldn't be seen as a multimedia thing. It should be seen as a campaign that is for journalists or for the media industry in our country, and therefore its execution must be by the media industry in the country. Because at the end of the day, it is not just multimedia journalists that we're talking about. It is not the survival and sustainability of multimedia we're talking about. It is the safety of all journalists and the survival and sustainability of all media organizations in the country. And therefore, I would urge all journalists, all media organizations, not to see it as an initiative by a competitor and so on and so forth, the usual competition, but to see it as something that is of common interest to all of us. And those of us at the Media Foundation, we pledge our full support for this, and in whatever ways that we can contribute to the, the success of this campaign, we would certainly do that.
Okay, Mr. Mafo, your final comments.
For us, we think that journalism is the highest show of our rights as a people for the expression of freedom. For every Ghanaian who wants to express themselves, if journalism is curtailed, then your right to express yourself is also being curtailed. And therefore, the reason why we are joining this campaign is because we believe it's for everyone. And we are calling on all Ghanaians to join this campaign. And for us, we are committing ourselves to support this campaign. Even we are pushing to our global and regional platforms to ensure that media in this country do not get pushed in the corner. Okay. And we will continue supporting this process.
And it's definitely a campaign that will be running for the next 2 weeks, but of course for a longer period of time. So Mr. Brima, over to you. Let's do the symbolic launch today.
Well, I think this is something that all Ghanaians must support, all Ghanaians must applaud. And at the end of the day, it is about defending our democracy, defending the lives of our people who don't have voices. The media constitute the voice for the voiceless. And I think that on this occasion, I have the singular honor and privilege to declare this most important campaign that defend media freedom duly launched, and I hope that we would all be on board to make it a success.
Okay, it's duly launched. I've lost my voice. I've lost my voice. I would have done a very nice song on that one. But of course, the hashtag is defend media freedom. Defend media freedom, and we want you to join us on social media. Let's push this and let's safeguard this. For me, it's a job. For some people, for me, I say it's a calling. It's a calling, but we need your help to execute this calling because we're here for you. we speak for you. I've been doing this with a lot of people, and I'm going to go through all of them. Afil Money is president of the Ghana Journalists Association. He joined us all the way from the press center live. Mr. Money, thank you so much for your time, and certainly we'll be coming to you for more on this. And also Mr. Ken Nashibe, who is the former MD. Former MD. Okay, I will get there. I will get there. Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Telecommunications Chamber, but also former MD of the Graphic. And of course, he has been a very vocal person when it comes to media freedom, which is why he's here. He's very passionate about this, Mr. Nashibe. Thank you so much. I must also say, though, that he's worked here before.
So that's when I come here, that's what you should say. As General Manager and CTO of Multimedia simultaneously.
Thank you very much. Thank you for adding
part
that.
of this business
Thank
as well.
you. Which is why you are here to help protect us, with the voices to help protect us. Suleiman Abrahima is Executive Director of Media Foundation for West Africa. Mr. Abrahima, thank you so much.
Very much.
And he did us the honors of launching the campaign for us. And of course, Robert Akotwa-Mwafo is the Country Director of Amnesty International. My name is Gifty Andopia. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. And we keep it going. We keep the hashtag going. We keep the fire burning. This is our calling as journalists. Let's all come together and let's do it for this country and for ourselves.
My name is Daniel Daze.
Bernard Avle.
Kwame Sefaka.
Right, Nana Amfo.
David Ando.
Virginia Tenkran.
Edward Kwabi.
Joseph Akable.
Kojo Akoto-Boateng.
Umaru Sandaman.
Alfred Okanse.
Captain Smart.
Nana Majimana Sante.
Samson Ladi Anyenini.
Press freedom means
protection to journalists
to go about their work without any form of inhibitions,
undue influence,
hindrance or intimidation or fear,
free from harassment.
like a banker would go to their bank and work in the morning, like a teacher would go to the classroom in the morning and teach. And
The opportunity and the space to operate and keep the powers that be in check, and also to drive growth. So press freedom
Is that which enables me to tell the stories that matter the most to the audience.
And then to be able to hold powerful people accountable.
Press freedom to me means that I have
Legal backing, support of the state, support of the security agencies to be able to
be fair, to be probing, and to be development oriented.
Press freedom is
absolute freedom, but freedom with some responsibility is very vital for the survival of any democracy. In fact, I feel it is part of the birthright of every citizen.
So yeah, without press freedom, there can be no press.